Hello and welcome, I'm Tafaragadamu. My guest today, Dr. John Arnold, half a century ago, got his own brand of a school bus trying to reach out to the poorest of the poor in his home state of Arizona in the United States of America. Today, he and his colleagues have impacted the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. Well, he says theirs is not an NGO of money, but of ideas. What are they trying to do here in Ethiopia? Welcome to the program, John.
Thank you, Tefera.
Let's go back 50 years, is that right, when it all started with the school bus called what, the tortoise?
The tortoise, and in Latin or Spanish, it's called La Tortuga.
La Tortuga.
Actually, it's 45 years this August.
How many?
45 years.
45 years. I find that interesting because that was quite an unusual intervention, was it not?
I think it was because actually before 45 years, I was living in Mexico as a young boy, and I learned Spanish. And when we came to the United States, I was about 12 years old, and there was a church bus ministry that went out to the migrant immigrants that were coming to our area to work, and they used me as an interpreter because they were Spanish speaking. And when I was 16, I had my own bus. So before Project PEP started, I had a little bit of experience even as a child. So the intervention started maybe a few years earlier than 45 years.
Not 45 years. The reason why I'm interested in this discussion, in this interview, is because quite often we embark on very unusual things. Mm-hmm. We're not sure that we would be successful at the end of the day. Yes. Quite often, the reverse is the case.
Right.
It wasn't in your case.
No, I think a lot of it is the circumstances in your family. When I was 4 years old, we were living near Philadelphia in the eastern part of the United States, and one day my father called myself and my sister to the kitchen and said, "We're moving to Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico." And as a little boy, I thought, well, that was just down the street. So I went and packed my little toy box, thinking we would be in Mexico the next day. But it took 2 months to get there. It was a different country, a different culture, a different religion, a different language. But that also prepared me for the life that I have today, because most of the people I work with in Arizona are of Latin descent, or as we call Mexican American, people who have come to work in the huge agricultural industry. So that's where our base started.
And basically you're talking about poverty, is that right?
We're talking about people that have come to this country. In many cases, the immigrants, we've talked about the agricultural workers, many of them, even though they harvest the food that we put on our table, their conditions are not good. So we found our niche among the agricultural community and the poor, and we call those folks farm workers.
Farm workers who've been migrating to the United States for as long as Americans could remember.
Exactly.
It's still a contentious issue, is it not?
Yes.
But more so because your governor had that,
Yes.
Yeah.
I live only 18 miles from the Mexican border, and having lived there almost 50 years on the border, I have a good perspective. But I believe that most immigrants come because they want to feed their families, they do a hard work, and then they go back home. So I am very grateful for the immigrants that have come to the United States, because all of us, America is a melting pot. We all have are immigrants, except for those that came what we call Native Americans 12,000 years ago.
But they also make a difference in the American economy, don't they?
Arizona, as you may know from our name, arid zone, it's one of the hottest places in the United States. It can get to 120 degrees Fahrenheit, and we are yet the fifth largest agricultural producing state. It's because we have the Colorado River and the irrigation, and we have we are the winter vegetable capital of North America, and it's those workers, those farm workers that come in every day from Mexico to work in 120 degrees at very low wages, and sometimes have to start at 2 or 3 in the morning because by 9 o'clock it's inhuman to continue to work.
And these are the very people that you targeted when
Yes.
you started 45 years ago, the school.
Exactly.
The school bus.
And we were inspired by so many wonderful people then, Dr. Martin Luther King. And then there was a man named Cesar Chavez. Cesar Chavez was an organizer in California. He was actually born in Arizona, and he helped the farm workers to organize what's now called the United Farm Workers Union. And then Dr. Martin Luther King helped start the civil rights movement. Both of them at the same time opened many, many doors for people like myself to have that dream. And there was actually resources under John Kennedy, the president, and Jane Johnson. Also, they started they called the War on Poverty, or the Great Society. And that's where we first got our money to start.
It's very interesting, because 50 years down the line, you're talking about the same thing: immigration.
Yes,
I mean, doesn't that worry you? Because what I'm trying to see here is that yours is just a drop in the ocean. You targeted the immigrant community, but the immigrant community continues to be on a unit that is quite outside of the American psyche.
And I believe that even the immigration started 12,000 years ago in America. The route that I live in southern Arizona, was used by the Aztecs to trade with the natives in Arizona 10, 12,000 years, even before that, what we call the pre-Hispanic or Mesoamericans. So immigration is something that's always been with us and will always continue to be with us. There's no fence too big to build, because there's always one ladder that you can climb 1 foot higher. So fences don't work. Walls don't work.
But you're building fences, aren't you?
Yes, but there's always
Isn't that disturbing?
It's disturbing.
Because I'm trying to understand the whole scenario from an ordinary, if you will, American who's tried to make a difference.
Yeah. Well, I think our mission is to serve people without looking at frontiers, because our organization works across the line in Mexico. We work with orphanages. We work with microcredit programs. We have many partners across the line in Mexico. So as I look at the trade that's continuous between the United States and Mexico over the last 12,000 years, we also look at it from the point of view that our social services know no frontiers either. So we continue to work across the line with people that think like ourselves, and we develop partnerships, and we develop programs that mutually affect the people that we care to reach.
I know that you're recognized in your own state of Arizona and by various organizations across America for your work. But didn't your work in a way put you at loggerheads with the establishment out there?
Well, I think that you have
Because that's very critical, isn't it?
It's very critical, but you have to realize I work in several countries, and there's different governmental philosophies that are there. And you're not there to work for the government. You're there to work for the people. The people are our government, or our constituency. So when we go to a country, we work with the people at the grassroots level. So we're not really affected by governmental policy, nor should we be, because we're not citizens of that country. When we go to Mexico...
But I'm talking about your own country, the United States,
yes,
the state of Arizona. Definitely when you make these interventions, you're going to talk about rights issues.
Yes.
Because, as you said, you've been working with farm workers who are basically migrants.
And we are very active. I'm also the national co-chair of education for the League of United Latin American Citizens, which is one of the oldest and largest civil rights organizations in the United States. I also work with the Black Chamber of Commerce. And so we work through other organizations that have that specific role. Our role is to do human services, do the work of healing, doing the work of charity. But we have worked very closely with organizations that do the advocacy that you talk with, and that's how we operate.
One of the things that you work on is microfinance. Basically, you call it microcredit, right?
Yes, I guess it's the oldest trade in the world, except for one other that I sometimes talk about. But it was the Romans, the Greeks, the Mesopotamians, probably Ethiopians. Everybody has always had micro business. So what is micro business? It's in some countries called the informal sector. But it is the lowest common denominator of business. In the United States, 70% of every business that exists there are 5 employees or less. So think what it is here or any other country. It's very interesting when Bill Clinton was the governor of Arkansas. He started a microcredit fund called the Good Hope Fund. And Hillary Clinton at the same time was at the South Shore Microcredit Bank in Chicago. And I was in Arizona importing the model from Mexico of microenterprise. And it just seemed that things started to happen together. In 1993, when Bill Clinton was in the White House, we worked together to create a law that would make microcredit an institution within the Treasury Department of the United States called the Community Development Finance Law, or CDFI. And that opened the door for thousands of organizations like ours to start a microcredit fund. The way it worked, the government
to get seed money from
yes,
the government.
but no, the seed money would come from the banks, but the government would guarantee the bank loan to us, and that opened the doors for us.
So you've made a difference in the United States.
I think that we all collectively did that. Bill Clinton, Hillary, and a great mentor, Dr. Mohammad Yunus, who won the Nobel Peace Prize for his work in Bangladesh. 5.7 million people received. So there's many people of inspiration around us. So we don't take credit for very much.
Well, in terms of your work out there in your home state and elsewhere, you've also done stuff in similar things in Nigeria.
Actually, yes, we have.
And Ghana. What I'm trying to understand is if you have made a difference in the United States where you work among the poorest of the poor, well, the riverside of it, you are outside of the United States, in Africa and so on. Have you made a real difference here?
I don't know if we've made a real difference, but I think we have had an opportunity to share with people ideas, because many parts of Arizona resemble what we would call third world economics, because outside the big cities, the rural people have the same problems that rural people have in any part of the world, and that's why we started on the bus going out to where they were. But in 2008, I went to Nigeria with a pastor, a friend of mine, and they were having a national pastors conference, and I was asked to speak on microenterprise, and I found out that almost all the pastors had micro business, and they wanted to start microcredit programs.
So what did you provide?
So through the first one, we provided organization. We provided the model that was being used in the United States. Basically, a one-to-one loan, which we call micro business, where you might lend me and I pay back with a small interest. Then the other program is called cooperative lending, where one loan goes to several people, and they're all responsible for the one loan. So in Nigeria, we got the cooperative lending and the microcredit under one umbrella, and it saved a lot of money rather than these two movements, cooperatives and microcredit, doing their own thing. We helped bring them together, saved a lot of money, and the Nigerian government was very happy and has prospered there.
But you're not saying that you've introduced a new thing. It's not like there's been nothing of that sort in Nigeria.
Exactly.
There actually has been,
Yes.
because you alluded to the fact that business is as old as humanity itself,
Well,
and basically microfinance fits into that paradigm.
But the cooperative movement started with the British weavers in 1848, and microenterprise came much later as far as an official part of the government, but there were two different branches, and we were able to get them to integrate into one. So the microcredit would be the feeder program, or the cooperative program would be a feeder into the microcredit. So it's a matter of just tweaking, as we say in the U.S., some things. When I was in Cameroon this year, I visited the northwest part, and they all have small microloan funds. And so when I was talking and visiting the different villages there, I found that the people selling corn and the people selling honey were going somewhere else to buy their corn and honey. I said, why don't you form a farmer's market and sell among yourselves, and then you keep recirculating the money in your community. And so every dollar they were spending outside to buy honey when they could have bought from themselves, that money was leaving their community. So little ideas sometimes like that are like we call a golden nugget.
Do you have the golden nugget here in Ethiopia? Have you introduced that?
I think I saw a couple of them while I was here. I was in Awassa 3 or 4 days ago, and there's a botanical garden to the Waldorf Foundation down there. A great gentleman by the name of Melese who visited us, and he was given 48 hectares of very pristine forest area that's untouched. Is right down to the lake. It has hippos and hyenas, and he wants to conserve this for the young people, so that we have something to give to our young people in the way of an environment, and teaching them about conserving environments. You know,
it's got nothing to do with microfinance, right?
Well, it's getting there. So the idea behind this is that you create a botanical garden, And also, that creates opportunities for vendors and opportunities for people, and it'll help the tourism because it's very popular in the United States, what we call ecotourism now. So we're going to try to, we've talked to some people in the United States and in Europe that do travel, and they're talking about humanitarian tourism, where you can spend your vacation, as this is my vacation year. I'm here because I want to give my free time to helping something. So we hope other tourists will follow that. So what would happen? The next step in the Waldy Foundation, they're looking at providing a small microcredit seed fund to help entrepreneurial people, that maybe the arts and crafts people that would have as vendors for the botanical garden, or people that would be guides, or people that would work with the hotels or would provide transportation. So whenever you generate a new effort, all the way around it becomes the opportunity. Business thrives. And then yesterday, I was in Joleta with a wonderful lady by name of Bate Bentanal. She came to Arizona about 2 months ago to the Tree of Life Rejuvenation Center and learned how to do whole foods, organic foods. So now her and her husband, Dr. Zoe, have found a house in Joleta, and they have remodeled it, and it's going to be a senior nutrition center and also offer diabetes education as well. And so when I went there yesterday, there was about 35 people showed up. We had a luncheon, and people were so excited about Bati's work, and the seniors came from the community. And at the end of the day, we'd collected some money. We had a nice dinner, and I didn't understand everything that people were saying when they would get up and speak, but I saw the smiles on the face, and I saw the enthusiasm, and this is what in America we call grassroots. So grassroots in Owasso, grassroots in Joleta, to answer your question. I think it's alive and well.
Now, are you bringing the ideas, or just the ideas, or you're also bringing experts? Like you mentioned the Hawassa Botanical Garden.
Yes.
I understand there are several of them across the country, some big, some small, some managed by big institutions, including the Addis Ababa University, and some, by some locals, whatever.
Yes.
So are you bringing in experts, or just the idea of how to manage those?
I think
I'm thinking of in terms of tourism.
All of the three. First of all, in Hawassa, when we were there, we signed an agreement with the Mexican government, who has a large biosphere in northern Mexico called CEDES, S-C-E-D-E-S, and we signed an agreement in Tucson when Waldy Emanuel was there, and then we signed it here with the two governors the other day, and so that linked a biosphere from our continent to here. Before I came here, I was in Limbe, Cameroon, which has the oldest and largest botanical garden, the Limbe Gardens, formed in 1890 by the Germans, and then later by the British. And after that, the Cameroonian government has taken it over. And most of the domesticated plants we have in Africa today, many of our agricultural products, were domesticated there. So I talked to the director there, and she said, well, we would like to also know more about the Ethiopian project in Owasso. So I think it's building networks is important, building networks. Then the other thing, we've talked to some architectural engineers, we've talked to some people that have agribusiness backgrounds in the United States and in Latin America, that maybe they will come and spend a couple weeks during their vacation, help designing the park. Maybe there will be an exchange visit to Cameroon, which would be very, very helpful, I think, because we learn from others. When I started PEP, Portable Practical Education Preparation, I learned from others.
You mean with the bus?
Yeah, the bus, La Tortuga, yeah.
So how do you operate? Is it on demand or what?
How we operate is that I guess...
Do you have an NGO here?
No, we
I understand you don't.
No, we don't have an NGO. But
how can you have a stable intervention if you don't have an organization that partners with the locals?
In America, we form what's called the West African Rural Empowerment Society. It's not an NGO of money. It's an NGO of ideas. We have Dr. Clement Aranini from Lagos, who is a great businessman here in Africa. He's our chairman. We have a gentleman by Nana Optipong Otrabibi III. He's a monarch in Ghana. And myself and Dr. Gabriel Cousins that will be coming for the diabetes seminar this year. So we formed this organization. We have no money, but we have a lot of expertise. We have a lot of networking. And I think that's the exciting thing about ideas. Sometimes I was in Cameroon and speaking to a group of people, and a lady got up after my speech and said, "What are you going to do for us?" And I said, I was reminded of President John Kennedy had said, "Don't ask what your government will do for you. What will you do for your country?" And I said to that lady, "I'm just here to help you do what you want to do. I can't do anything unless you have the energy. You're the grassroots people. Money isn't going to solve your problem. Yes, there are some interventions that we can help, maybe some seed funds we can do, maybe capitalize a little bit of a loan fund or help the center in Holetta with a little bit of furniture and things. But once again, it's the people that make projects work. It's not money."
You're organizing this diabetes seminar in November.
Yes, sir.
So what are you coming up with? Because I know there is an association for people with diabetes.
Yes, there is the National Association. Dr. Ahmed, I believe, is the director.
Exactly. So what is it that you're going to
We're working very
bring?
closely with them. Matter of fact, we're meeting this afternoon. What happened is last December, we were here and had an opportunity to meet with the president of the country, and we were talking about different things as you and I are talking about today. And we talked about diabetes. And I told them that in Nigeria, we had done a diabetes seminar, and then we did a diabetes seminar in Ghana. And the question was, what did you teach? We said, well, basically, the message is go back to the ways of your ancestors, how they ate. After all, that's why we're here today, is because they ate well. It's not because of what we call in America the junk foods, because in America in 1930, there were only 5 cases of diabetes. Now there's millions. Why is it? Because we've gotten on processed foods, we got too much sugars, we have too much salt, and we don't drink enough water, which we call the heavenly drink because of where water comes from. So make a long story short, we were invited to come back, and in December, we met with Dr. Ahmed with the National Association of Diabetes, and we've had 2 meetings since, and actually part of my trip here, we're preparing, I believe it's on the 28th of November here in Addis, and then we will also go to Aksum and have a mini diabetes, we call it the Natural Cure of Diabetes seminar. So we think it's exciting for the people to think about, love their body enough to eat well and to choose the right things to eat, because what we eat triggers our health.
Right.
And that's what we've got to be very careful. We're not here to tell people what to eat. We're telling them to be careful and minimize those things that are not good and maximize those things that are very good for you. And one of the things, as we mentioned, elimination of salts and sugars and many of the greasy things and the junk food, as we call it.
What is new here? I mean, this is something that's being told over and over again by the association.
Mm-hmm.
What is new in here?
Well, I think what it is, Dr. Gabriel Cousins is a world-class physician for over 38 years. He has a huge following worldwide and a big center in Patagonia, Arizona. And he was, he's my neighbor, and I've known him over the years, and I followed his work, and we've gone together to Ghana and Nigeria, and I've seen how he's opened the eyes of people. In Ghana, they're so excited. The diabetes seminar is now doing, Diabetes Association doing national telethons and everything else, going to the villages and talking to people about eating good foods. So once again, it's planting the seed or pollinating.
Do you intend to kind of expand your network in Ethiopia? Is that what you want to do?
Well, I don't know if we consider ourselves as a network. We're just people like everyone else. We want something better for our children than we had. It's just sharing ideas. I share a lot of ideas in Cameroon when I was there about microcredit from Nigeria and Ghana, because I believe that cross-fertilization of ideas is powerful, and it makes a difference in people's lives. When I started Project PEP, my organization, on the bus, I had no money. I only had a dream. I wanted a school. And yet when I applied for the money for the school, they only gave me a transport bus. So rather than getting discouraged, I converted the bus into a school.
You became the driver, teacher,
and
everything.
Mechanic. And now it's one of the largest, both virtual schools in the United States. We have over 5,600 students through Arizona Virtual Academy that study every day online. And we have 6 campuses working with at-risk rural farm workers, young people, preparing them for a better way of life. So you never know. So the answer to your question, we don't know what our future is. But I've seen between December and now huge progress in Joleta and Awasa. But that's not because of us. Maybe we were something, it's something like when a bee goes to a flower, it pollinates, but it's the pollen that creates things. So it's the people of Awasa and Joleta that will make these projects work. And I saw that in the faces of the people yesterday in Joleta.
Well, Dr. Arnold, thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure and good luck. Thank you very much indeed.